Welcome back to the channel, all you fish slayers. I am Fishhook Terry, and this has been a heavily requested video. I get tons of questions about how to properly set up a Shimano DC reel. Guys have seen me make super long casts without having to thumb the spool, be able to bomb lures out there without those bird's nest and backlashes, and this is going to be the video on how I teach you how to set up your DC reel for success. And I'm going to give you guys some tips if you're beginners or need some help with bait casters in general. There'll be a couple tips in here to help you guys make it more enjoyable on the water and have less issues. Again, I make this content for you, so if there's any questions, anything that you need me to cover in future videos, be sure to leave those in the comments below and I will take care of you guys. Also, if you're new, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification button, and share this video. If you've got any fishing buddies that need help with a bait caster, share the video with them too. So let's dive into it. Let me tell you my tips, my tricks on how to properly set up a Shimano DC reel. Let's go. All right, first things first is getting your line on the spool. I think this is the biggest key to success to make sure that you don't have those bird's nest and backlashes with your DC reel. These spools on these reels are slick. There's no hole to run your line through and tie off to, so it's hard to get a good hold or purchase when you are tying on your line for the very first time. So what you need to do is take a good piece of electrical tape, maybe about a ½ inch or so. You tie on your knot to the spool, and then you're going to use that electrical tape to tape down the knot. Make sure it's nice and sturdy. Then as you start reeling on your line onto the spool, I will use a glove or like a piece of cloth, something that I can hold the line here as I'm reeling it on and give some tension. And I'm going to try to do that as long as I'm reeling it on to get this line as tight as possible. And you can tell that you've got your line on there really tight is if you try to get like your thumbnail into the line and it doesn't move. You can't get into it. Again, if you get any slippage underneath here, that's going to create those bird's nests and have those issues. And then again, that goes for any bait caster. If you can get your line on the spool as tight as possible, you'll have less issues. Now, a little tip or a little trick that I will do is once I'm done spooling it up, I will take a clip like this and I'll tie it to something, either a fence post, you could tie it to the hitch on your truck, you could tie it to the mailbox and walk down the street, maybe 40-50 yards or so. As you clip it onto something sturdy, then what you're going to do is you're going to apply tension and you're going to reel back to that spot to make sure that your line is good and tight as you can get it. You can get your line on there super tight. That will save you a lot of trouble, a lot of issues, and it's going to make setting up the rest of this reel much, much easier. One other thing to know about spooling up your line on your spool: don't underfill it and certainly don't overfill it. I think the big thing is people will underfill reels, or maybe you've had a bird's nest and then you cut line out and now you have like a ½ a spool worth of line. That's when you're gonna see a lot of issues. So try to keep that line on your spool filled to the line on the spool. I'll show you that here. Keep it filled the appropriate amount. That will help you as well so you don't have issues on the bird's nest and backlashes. Now that you've got your line on your reel nice and tight, the next step is the actual brake settings of these DC reels. Now I've got the SLX DC, this goes for the CURADO DC, and there's a couple other DCs that have a few more brake stops, but the normal ones that you typically see out there, the SLX DC, CURADO DC, they've got 4 stops on the brakes, and I'll just recap them for you real quick. Number 4 is the most amount of brakes. So that's for beginners, that's throwing into the wind, that's for throwing light lures, you're trying to skip lures. Again, if you're just getting used to or new with a DC reel, start with 4 and then back down the braking as you go. The number 3 setting is for fluorocarbon or mono. The number 2 setting is for braid, like I've got here. And then the number 1 setting is if you want to try to get the longest distance out of your casts, or you're a super pro and you again want to open up your reel. That's what number 1 is for those super bomb casts. Now that you've got the brakes set up, let's go to the spool tension knob. Now this is going to be a little different than your traditional bait caster. On these DC reels, that digital control technology, the little computer chip in here that's reading that spool, the way that it stays charged, because there's no battery in here, the way that that computer chip stays charged is by the revolutions on the spool. So what you want to make sure is there's no slop or play in your spool. You want to tighten it down to just where it is nice and sturdy and it doesn't move around, okay? So you don't have to crank it way down. You don't want it loose where it's moving all around or having a lot of play in it. You want to get it to right where it is nice and sturdy and not moving, and that's going to be the perfect setup. Now we're ready to rock and roll. You've got your line on here nice and tight. You've got your brakes set up properly. You've got your spool tension knob set up so there's no slop in the spool. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut this snap off and I'm going to tie on a weightless Senko and show you how easy this is now to cast a very light lure, not have to thumb the spool, and get a good distance cast with no bird's nest or backlash. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, casting the SLX DC after we did our setup on the reel with the weightless cutter worm, and watch, we're gonna be able to cast this weightless lure about 35-40 yards and not have to thumb the spool because we set the reel up properly. No bird's nest, no backlash. Here we go. Look at that. Perfect every time. It's got that great DC whine or hum that you are looking for. It casts great, no issues, and again, you're throwing a weightless worm that's all jacked up now, a good distance with no problems. Now, if I wanted, again, to get more distance out of this, I've got it on the 2 setting for braid. I could move it to 1, or I could loosen up the spool tension knob just enough, but like I said, you want to keep that spool from moving around. But you can manipulate it a little more if you want to try to get more distance out of your lure. Now watch, we'll go to 1, but I am going to have to thumb this spool to make sure that I don't bird's nest at this time. But we'll go to 1 and we'll launch it out there. Let's go. But look at that, very light on the spool, was able to cast it great, a little longer on the distance. And again, no bird's nest or backlash. This is a tremendous reel. These DC reels are very good for all sorts of lures. You do not have to be a beginner to throw these. I know a lot of guys maybe poo-poo on the DC reels. I don't know why. They're just a tremendous reel to throw. They're very fun. If you like traditional braking systems, that's fine, but you don't have to be a beginner to run a DC reel. I honestly love throwing these just because they're so effortless. You can make these long casts and you're able to have just a fun time on the water. Again, I'll go back to 2. We'll bomb this out there, no thumb on the spool. Look at that. No problem. No thumb, no problem. All right, so once you set up your DC reel properly, they're very fun to throw. For me, I love these for throwing jigs or skipping jigs. I love these for throwing like larger topwater. I love them for lipless crankbaits and other crankbaits, lures that you can just launch out there. And this reel is just so much fun to do that kind of fishing with. You don't have to be a beginner on a bait caster to enjoy these reels. If you love a traditional braking setup on your bait caster, that's fine. Obviously, I've got some of those too, and they're fun reels. But that DC technology, it really just takes a lot of the worry out of having any line management issues, just as long as you set it up properly. So if you are looking for a DC reel, I would certainly recommend the SLX DC, the CURADO DC. They're tremendous reels for the price. They're gonna last a long time. You got that Shimano quality. Like I said, once you do the couple quick things, the tight line, the correct braking, your spool tension knob right, you're going to have a blast on the water. You're going to have a ton of fun. They're a great reel. If you're looking to get one, definitely do so. If you've got a reel and you've had trouble, I hope this video helped you get things simmered down so you can have more fun on the water. Again, guys, if there's anything I missed in this video, please leave it in the comments below. And again, if you're new, hit that subscribe button. Again, I am Fishhook Terry. I will catch you guys in the next one. Tight lines, everybody. Peace.